Nigeria, Africa's largest economy, relies heavily on international trade, particularly exports, to sustain its revenue. The country's export earnings are primarily driven by crude oil, which has long been the backbone of its economy. However, in recent years, non-crude oil exports have gained momentum, contributing significantly to Nigeria's total export value. These exports include agricultural products such as cocoa and sesame seeds, as well as manufactured goods and solid minerals. Nigeria's trade relationships span across multiple continents, with Europe, North America, and Asia emerging as its biggest partners. The country's export revenue is closely tied to global demand for oil, but diversification efforts are opening up new opportunities in other industries. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, here are the 10 countries Nigeria made the most revenue from in 2024. Spain. Nigeria exported goods worth 2,831,349,479 naira to Spain, with crude oil accounting for over 1 trillion naira and non-crude oil exports contributing 1 trillion naira as well, making Spain the top destination with an 11.07% share of Nigeria's global exports. Spain's reliance on Nigerian crude oil is driven by its need for energy resources, while Nigeria's non-crude exports to Spain include agricultural products like cocoa and sesame seeds, reflecting a growing trade partnership beyond oil. Number 2, United States. The United States imported Nigerian goods worth 1,689 billion, with crude oil dominating at 1,494 billion and non-crude oil exports at 194 billion naira, representing 8.25% of Nigeria's total exports. The US is a key partner for Nigeria, not only in trade, but also in areas like security and technology, with Nigerian non-crude oil exports to the US, including textiles, cashew, nuts, and handcrafts. Number 3, France. France imported Nigerian products valued at 1,588 billion, with crude oil exports at 1,442 billion and non-crude oil exports at 146 billion, accounting for 7.75% of Nigeria's global export share. France's exports of Nigerian crude oil are critical for its energy sector, while Nigerians' non-crude exports to France, such as cocoa and rubber, highlight the potential for further economic collaborations. Number 4, Netherlands. Nigeria exported goods worth 1,434 billion to the Netherlands, with crude oil contributing to 1 trillion and non-crude oil exports at 441 billion naira, representing 7% of Nigeria's total exports. The Netherlands, home to one of Europe's largest ports, serve as a gateway for Nigerian exports to other European countries, with non-crude exports like cocoa beans and petroleum gases playing a significant role. Number 5, Italy. Italy imported Nigerian goods valued at 1.3 trillion naira, with crude oil exports at 1,368 billion and non-crude oil exports at 9 billion naira, making up 6.72% of Nigeria's global export share. Italy's energy needs heavily rely on Nigerian crude oil, while the minimal non-trade exports indicate room for growth in other sectors like agriculture and manufacturing. Number 6, India. India imported Nigerian products worth 1.1 trillion naira, with crude oil exports at 131 billion and non-crude oil exports at 1 trillion naira, accounting for 5.8% of Nigeria's total exports. India's focus on Nigerian non-crude exports such as cashew nuts, sesame seeds, and cocoa reflects its demand for raw materials for its food processing and manufacturing industries, while crude oil imports remain steady. Number 7, Canada. Canada imported Nigerian goods valued at 979 billion naira, with crude oil exports at 976 billion and non-crude oil exports at 3 billion naira, representing 4.78% of Nigeria's global export share. Canada's imports are almost entirely dominated by crude oil, underscoring Nigeria's role as a key energy supplier, while the minimal non-crude exports suggest untapped potential for trade diversification. Number 8, Indonesia. Indonesia imported Nigerian products worth 823 billion naira, with crude oil exports at 729 billion and non-crude oil exports at 94 billion, making up 0.02% of Nigeria's total exports. Indonesia's import of Nigerian crude oil support its growing energy needs, while the non-crude exports like rubber and cocoa beans highlight opportunities for expanding trade ties. Number 9. United Kingdom. The United Kingdom imported Nigerian goods valued at 699 billion naira, with crude oil exports at 685 billion and non-crude oil exports at 13 billion naira, accounting for 3.41% of Nigeria's global export share. The UK's historical ties with Nigeria contribute to drive trade, particularly in crude oil, while non-crude exports like cocoa and spices remain niche but promising sectors. Number 10. China. China imported Nigerian goods worth 683 billion naira with no crude oil exports recorded and non-crude oil exports dominating at 683 billion naira, representing 3.34% of Nigeria's total exports. China's focus on Nigerian non-crude exports such as agricultural products and solid minerals reflects its strategy to secure raw materials for its manufacturing sector, while the absence of crude oil imports highlights China's diversified energy sources. If you're new to my channel or you're returning and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, share and like, and see you in the next video.